So joining me, we have Illinois Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi. He serves on the Oversight and Intelligence Committees. Congressman, welcome. I do want to quickly ask you about these collapsed trade talks. Canada saying it will retaliate dollar for dollar. What's going to be the impact of this?
It's going to hurt Americans. Let's be very clear that these tariffs are actually taxes on Americans. Illinois happens to also be a huge exporting state to Canada. 20% of our exports go to Canada. And so not only are Illinoisans and Americans going to pay more because of these tariffs that Trump is putting on Canada, but we're also going to be hit by the retaliatory tariffs that are put on Illinois exports. I should just say one other thing, which is that, basically, again, Trump is driving away our friends, partners, and allies here, Canada, and probably into the arms of our trading adversaries like the Chinese. So this is just a disastrous situation. And just like that Indy car race that you were talking about before, our trade policies are going in circles, and Americans are getting hurt in the process.
Okay, let's pivot to Natalie Harp, because she reportedly acts as the main gatekeeper of the information that Trump sees on a daily basis. The troves of printouts that she delivers to the president typically includes favorable coverage, positive poll numbers from questionable sources, and some messages from both confidants and also those trying to get Trump's attention. So if Harp is only allowing, let's say, the good news, the good stuff to get through, what does that say about the president's decision-making process?
Well, I think that if she's only allowing good news to get through, that means that he's not going to be acting on any bad news that's occurring because of his policies. We see, just look at the trade policies and the fact that Americans are fed up with high prices and how these tariffs are just going to hurt them continuously. We can look at the Iran war, which has been disastrous. It's illegal and unconstitutional, but it's also harming our national security. And one other thing about Natalie Harp, she refused to complete what are called the SF-86 security clearance forms for a very long time. Those are the forms that require her to provide information about her past employment, her debts, any substance use problems, anything that our adversaries could potentially use against us through her. And the fact that she refused to complete those forms for so long and she has such great access to the president is also equally concerning.
Yeah, in fact, there was a national security official who told MS Now that Harp has access, in fact, to the most sensitive information around Trump, more than nearly all other senior White House officials. A White House spokesman told MS Now Harp is one of the most loyal and hardest working aides to Trump. But what are the national security concerns about Harp's role and constant close proximity to the president?
It's just like what we were so concerned about with Jared Kushner back in 2018 when he applied for security clearance, which is that, his big debts, his personal problems, his weird connections to foreign governments meant that potentially a foreign government could use those things against us through him by, essentially leveraging them to gain access to the president. And I think that we just have to be concerned. The fact that she refused to complete these forms for so long, the fact that she has this weird relationship with Trump where she calls him his guardian and protector. And, it just raises the concern that maybe there is some foreign access that is being gained through her. At the least, we need to understand what's really going on here.
Yeah. Just want to say that MS Now has not confirmed the accuracy of those letters, but we've certainly seen them, like you were quoting from. That said, let's move to the president, who this week hosted cryptocurrency execs at the White House. And the meeting was officially a kickoff event for a new government committee created to advise the industry. But some of the attendees are business partners of the Trump family's crypto company, which brought in, by the way, $1.4 billion last year. Are the enormous conflicts of interest of Trump's crypto dealings, is it something that the Oversight Committee will examine if Democrats take back the House?
It has to. I mean, just look at World Liberty Financial, this company that basically Trump runs and owns through his trust, and his sons operate on a direct basis. This entity got Trump a big part of his $2 billion in obscene earnings yet last year. And it just recently received approval from the comptroller of the currency to be a bank, to be chartered as a bank, even though obviously Trump controls the comptroller of the currency. And so this self-dealing is obviously epic in this administration, but Democrats are the ones that have to hold them accountable and shed light on this. And it's yet another reason why people should vote for Democrats in November if they want to put a check on this self-dealing and this epic corruption swirling around the Trump administration.
I want to get to some a detail about that. I want to make sure I get this right, because under a law that Trump signed last year, World Liberty Financial, it cannot pay depositors who buy its stablecoins any interest, but the bank can earn interest for itself by putting the cash it collects from those depositors into government-backed treasury bonds. Why would investors want to buy the Trump stablecoin, or is this a way to buy influence with the president?
That's exactly the question that we should be asking ourselves, which is the reason why he was able to get so much money through his meme coin and through Trump Liberty Financial is because, in my opinion, people were trying to buy influence with Trump. And that corruption, by the way, is, I think, at the heart of problematic policies that affect Americans in other ways. It controls our foreign policy and disastrous foreign adventures, which I think include what's happening in the Middle East. It includes potential trade decisions that the Trump administration is making as well. Again, hurting Americans economically. I have legislation along with others on a bipartisan basis to ban the trading of individual stocks. And that would cover the president, and it would require the president to liquidate all of his holdings in crypto. That type of reform is absolutely crucial right now if we're to make sure that the president, as well as members of Congress, serve the public interest and not their private portfolios.
And listen, what you're saying, it syncs up with Democrats who are reportedly preparing an aggressive oversight agenda if they win the House in November. House oversight and judiciary leaders Robert Garcia and Jamie Raskin indicate they will subpoena senior Trump officials and family members for a wide range of investigations and alleged misdeeds. Where will Democrats begin? Do you have any names?
I think the list is probably too long at this point, but I think it starts with people close to the president. I think it involves members of his family. I think we didn't even talk about the Epstein investigation, which has been frustrated repeatedly by the Trump administration for years. I think it also includes cabinet officials. So family members, cabinet officials, financial business partners are all in the mix. And I think they are all fair game for these subpoenas as well.
So DOJ plans to deploy 1,000 election monitors to polling places nationwide for the midterm elections. The DOJ says that the monitors will investigate potential violations. They will ensure voting access. But you, sir, sent a letter to Attorney General Todd Blanche seeking assurances that federal officers will be used solely to protect Americans' right to vote and not suppress that right. What answers are you demanding from Blanche on how these monitors will be deployed?
Well, we want to know the number. I think it's over 1,000 monitors that they plan to send across the country. We want to know where they're being sent. What is their purpose? How will they function in the elections? I personally believe that they're going to be used as yet another tool for voter intimidation and voter suppression, especially of Democratic voters and especially in swing states. And by the way, this is kind of yet another item on the list of items that the Trump administration is pursuing to potentially interfere with the election, because I think he's getting desperate. He sees this as the only way that he could possibly retain a majority in Congress. Another area that I'm especially worried about is the use of the U.S. Postal Service, which he's now using to require states to fork over their voter registration data, or else the USPS is threatening not to deliver election mail and mail-in ballots, which is disastrous. And so, we just have to shine a light on all of these issues right now, raise public pressure, join in litigation. And of course, again, a vote for Democrats in November is a vote for accountability and finally putting a check on these abuses by the president.
Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi, I want to thank you for the conversation, sir.